Oh, so we're back, and we're going to talk about, firstly, forgiveness. Because you went to being an adopted child, which means that you felt issues of abandonment. Your own mom didn't want you. Then you went into this family system where you got abused as a child. Then you went into a domestic violence situation with your previous marriage. And now we are here. It's not that linear.
No.
Yes, it's not that linear. It had its tangents and curves and everything else. But we're here. And for you to be able to pen your pain, there needs to be a lot of forgiveness.
Yes, I think.
Did you forgive them all?
Okay, so for me, I don't like the word forgiveness. I think it's a construct where, you know, it's this kind of like all-encompassing. I forgive my stepfather for having abused me. I'd love to say that you can do that. You can't do that stuff. You know, it's like a big thing. Like he did a big thing. I mean, it was like years of stuff. You can't go, I forgive you. So it's a process of kind of eating the elephant one bite at a time. And I like to call it letting go. So for me, it's about integrating back into yourself. What can I take from this? So forgiveness for me is about me. It's about taking what happened to me and going, okay, so what am I going to do with this? Am I going to destroy myself? Or am I going to take a lesson or a blessing, integrate it and become a better me? So for me, victory is in the letting go. Victory is there. And so when I say truly, I'm going to say that I truly believe this. I do not regret or cry over the difficulties of my life, because everything that happened to me has made me who I am today. And you know, when we talk about things like rape, and we talk about things like beating, strangulation, these are hard things, right? But I wouldn't change any of it, because if I change it, I wouldn't be me. And if I wasn't me, we wouldn't be talking about a book.
Have you forgiven yourself?
I
Because
think
you've
yes.
spoken about, I allowed myself into the situation.
Yes.
And as everybody has been abused in one way or another, and everybody abuses in one way or another. So we internalize a lot of the stuff when traumatic experiences are happening. No, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have gone out. I shouldn't have tested the boundaries.
Yes.
I should have known.
I should have put dinner on the table by 5 o'clock.
You know? So have you sat down with Celeste?
I have, and I think in a lot of aspects I have like kind of let go. But I think that's part of the hardest part. I think the hardest part is sometimes not what someone else did to you, but letting go of this idea that I am responsible for the position that I was in. And in certain places, yes, I have. And in other places, it's a work in progress.
Work in progress.
And you're always a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And then you've also spoken about your mental health issues. As is always the case with victims of abuse and survivors of abuse and thrivers of abuse. Yes. I like the word thrive.
I like thrive as well.
Yeah, thrive is better than survive, right?
Yeah, I think.
But it's a process, it's a journey. So you first this, then you survive, then you thrive.
You're thriving, and then you're surviving, and then you're thriving. It's not a linear process.
It's not linear.
No.
How did you overcome the depression?
I don't think that I think I've got complex PTSD.
Yeah.
And, you know, a few other, I think if you go, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD many years ago. But I think if you had to go for a psych assessment, I think if anybody went for a psych assessment, they'd find something.
Yeah, they would.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think depression is one of those things. And I don't think you cure depression. I think you manage depression. Mm-hmm. You manage your PTSD. You manage your fallout. So, for instance, in the week, I was talking on one of the groups, like, I can feel it coming. So what do? So I have various tools and practical things that I do to help myself cope with it. You know, I have a support group. So like a lot of people think, oh, it's Celeste and Celeste did this. No, you don't do things in a vacuum. I have a team. I have people that help me to get up on the days that I'm not everybody's sunshine.
On a side note, it's an internal joke because I call her Sunshine because she feels like the sun. I don't know if you've experienced it, but if you've been in her presence, you'll know that she feels like a son. In conclusion, Celeste, you say, stand up, use your voice, challenge, debate, grow, but most of all, act. To see change, we need to be change. To be the change, we need to heal, and that's the bottom line. In closing, I can only leave you with a prayer my mom taught me when I was very young. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes.
And the journey continues?
The journey continues.
What's next?
Every day. So more books, hopefully more books, and more working with other survivors. I think there's nothing greater than seeing someone rise. And a lot of talk about society, a lot of debates, a lot of troublemaking.
A lot of courageous conversations.
A lot of courageous conversation, and a lot of talking about that a survivor doesn't always look the same and isn't always what you'd expect it to be.
Yeah.
You know? So a lot of that.
So after you write a book, the authors always say, it felt like I was taking a deep breath in and I was exhaling. So is this exhaling?
It is exhaling. And I think in the back of my mind, my whole life, I've wanted to write a book, but I was always afraid. And I think that if there's one thing I can say to you, if you're a survivor out there, the day that you can step through your fear and do those things that are in the back of your mind that you never wanted to do, that's the day that you're stepping into you.
Yeah, thank you so
That's the
much.
day.
Thank you for allowing us into the deepest parts of your life, and for doing it in such a tangible manner that I can actually go back and be like, that happened. Thank you so much. I'm going to take 2 questions from the floor, and then hopefully Celeste can handle it. I mean, she's handled, you've survived 100% of your bad days. So
Yes.
That's
another thing, right? You're always 100% successful at surviving because you're still breathing.
Yeah. So any questions?
You can ask me anything about my life, eh?
Even the life, not just the book?
Yes.
Lady of the hour. I've just arrived a few minutes ago. My apologies for that. But I want to say, you're very brave. Not everyone can come out with their story with the deepest, darkest parts of their lives and put it out there for everyone to see. My question is, there's a lot of abuse happening in South Africa right now. And you did cover a bit of it towards the end there. But I would like to know, what would you say, because you are at quite an advanced stage of your journey, what would you say to someone who doesn't even know that they're being abused? Someone who is at the beginning of that journey of being abused. So what would you say to them? Not advice per se, but what would Celeste say to someone who is going through something similar? Thank you.
Like, make the questions hard. Okay, so, I work a lot with survivors on a daily basis, and I try to reach out, especially on social media. So we try to reach people who generally wouldn't speak out. And the very, very first thing I say to every survivor is, you never, ever have to walk alone. So I think this idea of you have to walk alone is a problem. And so that is one of the things. And the other thing that I tell them is that the answers are inside of themselves. Somebody's not going to come and save you. Somebody's not going to heal you. All we can do is we can talk to you about how, or I can talk to you about how I did it. I can give you tips from my journey, and I can show you that there's always an answer. For me, that's the thing. Like, sometimes for survivors, the only thing they have to do is put one foot in front of the other until they get to the other side. But don't be afraid to reach out for that help. When you reach out for help, reach out to people who've been there and who have successfully negotiated. Because the problem is, a lot of times you'll go to someone who's never experienced that kind of thing. And so the advice that they're giving you is putting you back instead of going forward. And I did that a lot. Because there's this fear of people going, yo, well, you made your bed, now lie in it, right? Like, everybody's heard that. or you just leave or stuff like that. And those are not helpful. What you need to say is, what do you need from me? I'm here for you. What do you need from me? How can I help you? And stand in your own power. Don't let other people make decisions for you.
Thank you so much. Last question.
Oftentimes, people who have been in childhood abuse situations go on to a series of adult abusive relationships. And there has to be a reason for that. I think maybe it's covered in the book, I don't know, but what would you say is the reason for people going into one abusive relationship after another?
I think that children are not helped properly. I think they're not healed properly. And I think if you don't heal, you'll always end up in the same situation, right? So what happens is, because you don't get the right healing, maybe you haven't had the right assistance, so you've got all of this damage. And then you take that damage out, and someone who is out to control you or to subjugate you, they can see that damage from a mile away. You have this big X on your back, and so they go, and they don't have, you're already groomed, you're already broken, and so they start where your childhood abuser left off, right? And then you go into a domestic violence relationship, and then you go into another one. Because why? Because you didn't heal from your childhood abuse, then you didn't heal from your domestic violence, or maybe you were raped and you didn't heal from that, and it's one trauma after another. No healing, you are groomed, you are a target, and it's not necessarily that you are calling it, but you are a target. And until you actually heal, you will always be a target. So my advice is, get the right help. And we need to teach, like, social workers, child psychologists, communities, how to heal children in a way that they are not ready for the next predator. I think that's a big thing.
Okay. In closing, thank you so much for the questions. In closing, I'd like to say, if Celeste really does not perform her pain, and she's got you, you're not going to walk alone. When you conclude the book, so she gives you ways in choosing a therapist. If you feel triggered by reading the book, even though she's tried her best to make sure that she does not perform her pain, she gives you ways on what to consider when choosing a therapist. Because we go, oh, I need therapy, and then the first available therapist you get, and that therapy is not necessarily what you need. So she gives you tips. Not only that, she gives you questions to consider as you go through the healing process. And because you never walk alone, there's a lot of resources, numbers of organizations, Childline, National Counseling Line, AIDS Helpline, anything and everything, even Marie Stopes. So they're going to need some. Okay, anyway. So she's given you all of these resources at your disposal, and it's in the book. I think everybody should have this book in their bags. If you need it, get it. 250? Available where?
You can get it through a link on our website, on our social media pages, on Bronrose, everywhere. Especially, you can find me personally, and you can get a link, and then you pay 250 plus postage.
Yeah, 250 plus postage. It will help your life. Celeste, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.